then gradually began walking without the walker. My first trip without the walker was 5 feet to the bathroom. And then I started going a little bit further and a little bit further. Started going, when I got to the front door, it was crazy. I was so happy. And then I had to go down 5 stairs, sat there for about half an hour till I could go back up the 5 stairs. And the biggest moment of that time period, I'm going to cry, was being able to go to the mailbox at the end of the driveway. And that was my goal. I was so excited to get to the mailbox, and then started going down to the corner, around the block a little bit, and then down to the stoplight. And every goal seemed more and more complicated, but I kept going.
Welcome back to the Obesity Stories Show. I am your host, Dr. Dan. The purpose of these interviews is to share the stories of everyday people that are struggling with obesity, their successes, failures, and ongoing struggles in order to bring awareness to the fact that obesity is a chronic and progressive disease. The individuals that we've talked to thus far have been truly inspiring. Their stories, their struggles, it's something that I've really enjoyed, and I hope you have as well. And I hope that it's bringing that awareness, but also helping you to realize that you are not alone along your journey. And so, if you haven't already done so, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. As well, turn on those notifications so you never miss out when I put out another video. And if you are interested in sharing your story, then go to the links down below, complete my questionnaire, and a member of our team will reach out to get you scheduled and booked in with myself. Today, my guest is Barb. Barb's story is one of both heartbreak and triumph. She has lost and gained hundreds of pounds over and over again. Struggling with her weight for as long as she can remember, she was one of the many that was started on Weight Watchers in her teens. She was also an individual that was put on Fen-Phen at a point in time and unfortunately developed some heart complications because of it. Barb then underwent bariatric surgery, where she had tremendous success until she felt she was too skinny and too small. She no longer felt safe within her own skin. Unfortunately, Barb then regained all of the weight that she lost and then some, reaching her highest weight of 405 pounds. Which led her to becoming bedridden and no longer wanting to live. It wasn't until she had an interaction with a cardiologist regarding complications due to COVID that she finally decided she needed to make some changes. She started small and progressively built herself up, starting with being able to just walk to the bathroom to then working her way to walk to her mailbox at the end of the driveway. During this process, she was started on Trulicity and eventually switched to Mounjaro. These medications she credits to helping her along the way, but also to saving her life. Today, she is now down to 154 pounds, and she is truly living her best life. She is setting all kinds of incredible goals that are going to further improve her health and make sure that she is present and there for all of her family. And on top of that, she is inspiring and helping others that are struggling with obesity, as well as providing a great deal of education about how to talk to your doctor and also speaking with clinicians and making sure that they are properly educated on how to treat and manage individuals that are struggling with obesity. You can check out her website, healthatanycost.com, where she goes into great detail on a number of different blogs, and it's really quite a great little website, and really I enjoyed looking through it myself. Now, Barb does have some lasting health complications due to her previously high weight. She's ultimately not letting that slow her down. Her story was incredibly inspiring, and I know that you're gonna love it. Again, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below, and without further ado, let's go talk with Barb. Welcome back to the show, everybody. I have the esteemed pleasure of speaking with Barb, who has the website Health at Any Cost. How are you doing today there, Barb?
I'm really good. Things are good. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining me here today. I am super pumped to get into your story, hear a little bit more about it. And why don't we start right at the top? tell us about your weight journey. What has it been like? Where have you been? What have you done? And so
You
on.
got it. You got it. I was 6 when I got my tonsils out and was really skinny until I got my tonsils out. And then my mom said the night I came home from the hospital, I began eating. And now there's good research that shows that people who get their tonsils out before they're 10, there's about a 70-80% of those people become morbidly obese as adults. So it took decades for me to learn that fact. And then at 10, I was put on speed, amphetamines. My mom took me to the doctor. At 12, I started going to Weight Watchers, and it just kept going up when I had got pregnant the first time, I had gained 80 pounds. The second time, 30. The third time, 30. Never lost weight the whole time. By then, I was probably 340, somewhere around there. And then Fen-Phen came out in 95, and I had been sent to the doctor, and they found that I had diabetes, type 2 diabetes. So I was put on Fen-Phen. It had only been out for a couple of months by that point. So I was put on it and I loved it. It was one of those things that just turns off the food noise, but nothing like what GLP-1s do, but I didn't know that at the time. At the time, it was glorious. It was like, this is so nice." Over 19 months, I lost 111 pounds. I did the rounds on Montel and CBS This Morning and the Today Show and things like that. And on the CBS This Morning, I sat next to a cardiologist who said, "You need to go get your heart looked at." And so I did, and sure enough, mitral valve regurgitation.
No, no
Sure
way.
enough, yep. So I went
Wow.
on it and gained every pound and another 40 within 9 months.
Okay, so that would
So
have brought you up to the 380 then? Okay.
no, I lost 111. I was probably maybe 300
Okay.
when I started gaining again. Well, maybe, yeah, maybe that would be about right. Yeah. It's all a blur because I've done this so many times. It's just frustrating. So
Mhm.
I should have written it down. Sorry. I'll do some research.
Totally. No,
Yeah.
no, that's
Yeah.
and I mean it's very fascinating because I'm gonna have to go back through the literature and look at the tonsil aspect because that's very unique and interesting, and I could certainly see some aspects with I mean just a physical limitation. Usually when we're getting our tonsils out, it's because we're getting a lot of strep throat and they're quite swollen and big and stuff. And so I could see that how it restricts mechanically, if you will, of how much you can eat. And that would be, yeah, I'd be very curious to kind of look more into that. So that's fascinating. And yeah, your story is very much one, the Weight Watchers, going to the doctors at a young age and kind of starting that ball rolling. Did your mom struggle with her weight at all?
Yes, yeah. She
Yeah.
was obese as well, not nearly as big as I ever got. One of the things that I learned from her that I didn't know I learned until lots and lots of therapy, she hid food. She hid
Oh,
candy specifically. I do not know how I found it, but I could sniff that candy out of her lingerie drawer like it was like it was sitting right in front of me. I would open the M&Ms and I'd eat them, and she never said anything about whether she found it that I had eaten them or not.
mhm.
I don't know if you remember, it's AIDS. They're called AIDS candies. Do you remember those? They were
No.
caffeine. They were little chocolate caffeine squares. Damn, were they good. I found them in the top cabinet in the kitchen and ate them like candy. They were so good. Never had any feeling of jitteriness or anything like that. I had to have been maybe 13, 14 around there.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, hiding stuff. And then later in my life, as I'll describe, I hid food as well. I stored it like a squirrel. It was very odd. Even when I lived alone, I would still hide food. Isn't that odd?
Interesting. And like Yeah, and I mean the hiding of it was, I'm assuming, when other people were there, kind of don't want people to know, the judgment, the shame, that sort.
I also didn't want them to take it. I had this bizarre thing that people were going to take my food. Yeah. And part of that again with my mom, because she was always on diets. When she was on a diet, we'd have carrots. And when she wasn't on a diet, she'd make eclairs. So when we were on carrots, it was a drag. When it was eclairs, we ate, or I ate, my siblings were not very big. I ate as if there was going to be a famine again, because there was.
Yeah.
So,
And kind of that, yeah, that manufactured sense of it as soon as your mom went back on a diet, right? And it's interesting that, yeah, your siblings, so again, same environment. Were they older than you, younger than
no,
you?
I was the oldest.
Oldest? Okay.
Yep.
So probably the most aware of the behaviors and patterns and seeing your mom do it. But nonetheless, if your siblings didn't struggle with their weight being in that same environment, I mean, there is that genetic backing and piece of it
Right.
that really comes into play.
Right. My dad was Cuban, and so I'm half Cuban. So we know the Latin part of me also has a susceptibility to type 2 diabetes. Everyone on his side of the family, his parents died of diabetes in Cuba. His sisters had it. One sister had her feet cut off. One went blind. His brother also had severe diabetes and had lots of sores that wouldn't heal. So I grew up with that, which comes into play as well, because it was normal for me for everyone to have diabetes. That was not unusual at all. So when they told me I had diabetes, I was like, whatever, you know. And now I hear people a lot say, I don't want to get diabetes. And that was so foreign to me, because
Hmm.
it was just normal that, yeah, your feet get cut off or you go blind or whatever. And it just didn't seem odd to me at all. So when they said that, and then the other thing that people always said is, you're going to die. And I'm thinking, we all die. What the heck? What's the big
Oh,
deal? But I'll tell you what changed my
fair
thinking.
enough. No, I mean that is fascinating in terms of the, yeah, just that foreignness, and I'd say the perspective is how it changed, and I mean it's through education, and I think people getting that and seeing a loved one or someone else that you know getting diabetes, having to go through those treatments. So yeah, there can be a great deal of fear and concern around it,
Mhm.
and yeah, that nonetheless is very interesting.
Yeah,
So to kind of,
for me it was kind of desensitization is how in therapy I dealt with that. Was it was just
okay.
I was totally desensitized to what diabetes could do to me.
Right. And yeah, it won't happen to me. I'll be just
Right.
fine, kind of thing, right?
Yep.
So, looking past the Fen-Phen, we gained the weight back and there was the heart issues and such like that. Where did things go for you from there?
I and two well, I was in the class action with Fen-Phen and won a good deal of money that ended up paying the cash for the RNY gastric bypass that I had in 2001. I weighed 360 when I went into surgery, and 14 months later, I weighed 150. So I lost a lot. This is a therapy thing as well. And it's so important. I know that a lot of people are like, I don't need therapy. It's just a chronic disease. Well, it is, but there's also a mental part of it. And I fell into that after the gastric bypass when I went to a store with some friends and my partner, and I put on a size 8 jeans without any thought whatsoever. What came out of my mouth was, I need chips. And that was the end of the gastric bypass working. Was that moment of realization of how small I was. I am uncomfortable with a lot of men. Men make me uncomfortable. And so to be even, and I'm not the prettiest person in the world, but to be even remotely attractive to somebody, to a guy, would make me very uncomfortable. I'm lesbian, so I was in a relationship with a woman, and it was just really it was really it really messed with my mind being that small. So as I got bigger, and also as I'm sure you've heard as well, when we're really, really big, people look through us. They don't see us, they ignore us, they don't open the door for us, they don't, as they bypass you on the street, they don't say anything. And then as you get smaller and you become one of the masses, all of a sudden you become very visible and people see you. They open the door. Here, how are you doing, ma'am? Blah, blah, blah. And that was really odd. So as I got bigger again after the gastric bypass, I welcomed that invisibility. The I think the difference now is that I'm 63. I'm not 40. And that makes a big difference because who the heck is going to care what a 63-year-old looks like, whether I'm small, whether I'm big, whatever. So that's my safety net is my age at the moment.
Okay, so definitely learning a different perspective, going through some more shit for lack of a better term,
That's right.
and yeah, kind of just having more of that piece. But it's fascinating because I've heard this before with you're invisible, like you don't matter when you're bigger, and it's such a I mean, it's such an interesting dichotomy or oxymoron, whichever it is, where
Mhm.
you're as big as you have ever been in your entire life, but yet people just see right through you. You're
Correct.
invisible, you're treated
Correct.
as a second class citizen, and so on.
Yep.
And that really shows the perception that society and the public has towards individuals that are living in larger bodies. But it's always fascinating to me to hear what's coming on the other side. How are you feeling? And a
Mm.
number of people, and I find it's both men and women, and depending on what had happened in your childhood with respect to any kind of abuse or anything like that, when you get to that smaller size, yeah, you feel that loss of that protectiveness. You're not feeling as secure, and there almost is like, oh my god, I need to gain the weight back,
Yeah.
and not self-sabotaging, but just trying to protect
Mm.
yourself from
Yeah.
what's out there.
Yeah, it's a definitely a fine line between self-sabotage. And yeah, the word that I use is definitely um tell me again what you said. You said something just a second ago and I remembered what it was.
Like the self-sabotaging and not being seen in the world.
That's okay. We'll keep going. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's all right. So after that, we had the bariatric surgery. When you were going through the process of, I need chips and regaining, did you feel that there was more of an intention to gain weight, put that weight back on, kind of thing,
No
or did it?
idea. No idea. And I'm telling you, I've been in therapy since I was 18 trying to tackle this weight issue. Every kind of therapist you can imagine and Weight Watchers and all the diets and all the programs and Overeaters Anonymous, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I kept trying, and that's why my blog is called Health at Any Cost, because I am a person who will grab at health no matter what it costs, because I want to live. I want to live, and now I want to live more than ever because I spent 10 years bedridden before I went on Trulicity. And during COVID, I actually thought I was going to die. And I had a do not resuscitate over my bed because if EMS came, I didn't want them to resuscitate. I just wanted them to let me die. I was 380, 390 pounds. And I just had no hope whatsoever. And that was several years. I in 2014 is about when I went to bed and just didn't get up. It was I had a walker. If I went anywhere, it was in a wheelchair. It was just incredibly difficult and it just got more and more difficult. I had to have surgery for malignant melanoma. I had to do it 3 different times. And one time during the surgery, when they had to turn me over to do it on my back, they almost dropped me. and I woke up with bruises. Under my breast was split because the way that my breast laid on the table. And that was awful. And then also during COVID, I fell in my room and had to call EMS to come pick me up. And it took 4 guys to pick me up. And still, with all of that, I had the motivation, but I try and describe it like I was in a hypnotic state. It was almost like I had to eat. I had to eat. And the food noise I actually call food cacophony because it says, oh, it's morning. You just woke up. What are we going to eat? When are we going to go out? Are we going to get to go to a buffet today? What's going on? Oh, what's in the refrigerator? Let's go look in the refrigerator. Just continuous, like a ticker tape, just in my mind, but loud. And it kept telling me to just continue to eat. And I've heard other people describe it as well, but they usually use food noise. But for me, it was so pervasive in my mind that the first week that I did, even Trulicity lowered it about halfway. When I took Mounjaro, oh my gosh, it was gone. It was gone. So, yeah, so I was really big. I was 405 pounds. I had COVID in the end of 21, and I ignored the symptoms of complications of my heart and my lungs until April. So April 22nd of 22, I was in the hospital with these complications. And that day, there were 4 cardiologists who were standing in my doorway talking about me. One was an electrophysiologist, and he looked at me. He and I have different stories about it. I seem to recall him saying, "You will either change your life or you will live in a nursing home." It was as if the hypnotic trance disappeared that fast. All of a sudden, I saw myself in a nursing home, 400 plus pounds, with some person who hated her job, wiping my butt, wiping the infection under my belly, me sitting just with nobody and being all alone. And that day, I quit eating Uber Eats. And in 3.5 months, I lost 40 pounds. And then when I went to the the endocrinologist, she said, "Would you like to try Trulicity?" And I said, "Sure, I don't know what that is." Now mind you, no social networking, no TV, no radio, didn't read the news, still very little. So I had no clue what it was. And so, of course, I looked it up, and the Trulicity package insert says you may lose 5 to 10 pounds. And I'm like, that never happens to me. In that year, I lost 86 pounds. I didn't even know it was a GLP-1. I had no clue until Mounjaro came along. And my daughter said she had lost 20 pounds in a month. And I said, "How are you doing it?" And she said, "Mounjaro." And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "Well, go look it up." And I did, called my endo the next day and said, "Would you be okay changing this Trulicity to Mounjaro?" And she said, "Yeah, we have to do a PA and, I don't know if they'll pay for it." And they did. And then that was when, Trulicity helped me. I have no pictures of 405. I have pictures at 390. But I had no idea I was on a, health and weight loss journey. I got off the insulin on Trulicity. That was pretty cool because insulin makes you fat. So I thought that was fun. And until I got on the Mounjaro and read and then started watching on YouTube, oh my gosh, it was like my world exploded. That's when I started the blog. I started writing about what I was learning because I can't be the only one who is not on social media. I cannot be the only one that doesn't watch TV. There have to be people like me. Also, one of the things that I tend to write about and talk about, I'm getting ready to start to upload my podcast, which is called The Power of GLP-1. And one of the things that I specifically talk about is those of us who are super morbidly obese. And I call it super fat. I was just super, super fat. I was talking about it with my daughter today. I I had to buy clothes, dresses. I could not wear underwear because I didn't fit in any, didn't fit in any bras. And so wore these dresses and they were a 6X. And the place that I got them from did not even make anything under a 3X. So here I am wearing a 6X and I wore it with nothing underneath for 10 years. And now I have a bra on. I have undies on. It's so weird. It's so different. It's so odd. Anyway, so Mounjaro saved my life for sure. That's when, because Trulicity took me off the insulin because I was getting hypoglycemia stuff. So he took me off of that. But everything else was still there. I still had medication for the heart. I still was on medication for blood pressure, for cholesterol. But once I started Mounjaro, within 4 months, my hemoglobin A1C dropped from a 7 to a 5.1, which is where it stayed. When I was 405, it was a 9.0. So it took the Trulicity did some, but Mounjaro kicked its butt. So I'm really, really happy. And then I went off all the meds. Within 6 months, I was off the heart medication. I was also off the cholesterol medication, the what else was there? The triglycerides, yeah, the high blood pressure. I was off of that as well. So yeah, and now and people talk, and you know this, and people talk about, and we'll talk about that a little bit too as you're cheating. I say, so going off 7 medications in exchange for one shot. I'm thinking I'll take the one shot. I like that a lot better because it improves everything.
No, absolutely. And I mean that is absolutely incredible to hear your story and how you've changed and the things that you've kind of been undergoing in that process. And I mean, looking at Trulicity first, like it's amazing you got such a great response because it's
I
good at the
know.
diabetes side, but
Yeah.
not so much the weight side.
I
And
know. I know. It's crazy.
it's cool nonetheless. And the reason why Trulicity, the big thing is because it's attached to a much larger component that basically allows the drug to get into the system, to be circulated, and prevents it from being broken down. And so the idea is that it can't cross the blood brain barrier as easily as compared
Okay.
to, say, Ozempic, Mounjaro, and that sort. So it's not as effective. Some people it can get past a little bit easier, other people not so much. For you, it sounds like you got a pretty good response, but
I
also
did.
with the Mounjaro. So I guess with going on the Mounjaro, what was the difference? Where were you at with the Trulicity? We know the A1C, but how did your weight change since switching to Mounjaro?
Oh my gosh. I have lost, well, total, I've lost, it's crazy, 251 pounds as of today. I weigh 154 today.
154.
Isn't that crazy? 60% of my weight.
God,
All the stats are like 15. Oh, that's so good. Now, I thought so too. I was like, yeah, baby, I'll take that. 60% of my weight. And I work out. I walk,
right,
I work out like crazy. But yeah, I always forget. The numbers just roll in my head. I get very confused because of how fast it's happened. So if we
right.
take the 40 and add that to the 86 and subtract that from the 405, that's how much I've lost on Manjaro.
Okay. Wow. That is
Yeah,
incredible. Like, and 60% of your body weight. And I mean, yes, we know that the Roux-en-Y surgery that you had certainly can further help and kind of start kicking that piece in just from a purely restrictive aspect of things. But nonetheless, to get that benefit and that response and having that dual agonist activity to
yeah,
provide that is huge.
yeah.
Very, very incredible. So I guess what was the point for you? I think you kind of mentioned that you'll talk about it, but where did you I mean, you had the cardiologist that said the nursing home thing, and you started to kind of change on the Uber Eats and that sort of thing. But is there any other points where that was it clicked in? That was where we need to ship up or ship out kind of thing. Like what was it? What was it going on?
I couldn't move for a long time. I was still in the bed for about, gosh, the first 80 pounds until I went on Mounjaro.
Hmm.
What I did, because, we're supposed to, and we didn't know that the muscle loss was going to happen at the time when I started a year ago. That's still coming out. But what I did was I actually lifted my arms. I couldn't lift anything else. And so I lifted my arms, and then I started standing and lifting my arms. I would lift my legs. I watched YouTube videos for people who were old and in chairs. So I could do some of those things as well. And then gradually began walking without the walker. My first trip without the walker was 5 feet to the bathroom. And then I started going a little bit further and a little bit further. Started going, when I got to the front door, it was crazy. I was so happy. And then I had to go down 5 stairs, sat there for about half an hour till I could go back up the 5 stairs. And the biggest moment of that time period, I'm going to cry, was being able to go to the mailbox at the end of the driveway. And that was my goal. I was so excited to get to the mailbox, and then started going down to the corner, around the block a little bit, and then down to the stoplight. And every goal seemed more and more complicated, but I kept going. So I started walking outside at about 300,
Hmm.
280, somewhere around there. Yeah, it was, I mean, it's me. It's me that did that. It's not somebody else. And that's why it's so amazing to remember that in such a short time. And I wanted to mention about the RNY, the gastric bypass. My stoma has opened, and also my stomach has grown as well. So
Okay.
even though there was bypass, I didn't have any of the restrictive eating.
Okay. Wow. And I guess in terms of that process of you, the 5 feet, then the stairs, then outside, how long did it take you? Were you trying to practice and move yourself like every single day? Like what was
Yes.
what was the process?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took about probably about 4 months to get to the mailbox.
Wow.
And then as I started going, and I teach people this a lot because there are so many super big people like I was, that lifting weights is just crazy. It's so difficult to do that at that weight. We're carrying 400 pounds, for crying out loud, or more.
Yeah.
And so lifting weights is our arms. That's what we're doing.
Mhm.
But and then I know about the cultural differences as well, and the economic differences. So I talk to people about using soup cans. Start with little small Campbell soup cans, move
Yeah.
up to Progresso soup cans. Then you can use bags and put sand in it. You can put rice in them. You can do, I mean, just to be creative, that you do not have to buy weights. You don't have to buy the bands. You don't have to do all of that. There's so much in our life that without spending any money we can do.
Right. Ah, that is incredible. And I mean, you really highlight the progressive overload, that step by step fashion and continuing to push forward. So we know that yes, you wanted to live in that sort, but how did you keep yourself going where, you didn't feel like you were making much progress or it was still so hard? What
It
was
wasn't hard.
okay. Like
I'm
maybe
sorry to tell you that, but it wasn't hard. I dropped. Right when I got closer to about 180, I would have 6 weeks stalls, but I would be fine at 180. I never had a goal weight until about 3 weeks ago when I got close to 250 down. And then I was like, okay, let's see if I can get 250 down, because it's a nice even number from
yeah.
405 to 155. That's not bad. And then I hit it. And now I don't have a goal for that anymore, but I do have another goal that I'll share with you when you're ready.
Yeah,
So,
let's hear it.
okay.
Where are we going?
So I'm a Disney fanatic.
Hmm.
And for at least 25, 30 years, and I live in Orlando. So if I ever went to Disney, I had to use one of the electric scooters, they're called ECVs. And I had to use that all the time. And I
Hmm.
have tons of pictures of me on the ECVs at Disney, all the parks. As I begun walking in on December 29th of last year, I went to one of the resorts because as you go out the resort, you can go to the back of Epcot. And that was my goal, was to be able to go to the back of Epcot. And it took me 2 hours to go 2 miles to go out and then back up to another resort to go home in an Uber, where I slept all the way home in the Uber. And but I did it. So I was really happy. So then I had the goal of, okay, well, Disney does 5Ks every February. Maybe I'll do a 5K. Well, that sold out so fast that there was no way for me to get in. But all of my family is coming in the third weekend of October from around the country. Ooh, I'm going to cry again. My kids, my grandkids, my mom, who's 85, her husband, my brother, we are all going to go into Epcot, and I'm going to walk around World Showcase. It's 1.2 mile around once,
Hmm.
and they're going to walk with me once, and then I'm going to walk the other two so that I can get past 3 miles. And it's just going to be so exciting. I have not walked into a Disney park in at least 25, 30 years. Yeah,
That is amazing.
it's going to
I,
be so much fun.
Incredible. And I mean, I can only imagine just, yeah, how good that's going to feel, and just the progress that you've made, and the strength and everything that has to go into the changes and things that you've done up to this point in time. I mean, your story is it's incredible, very inspirational, and I really appreciate it. I mean, I guess a couple of my questions for you is, we kind of talked about the activity, but what was the eating like? What were you doing during this process for food? Or-
There's a variety of reasons, but I do not cook. I used
Okay.
to cook as a mom. I got tired of it. I just don't want to cook. So people are going to scream about this, but that's the way it goes. I eat lean cuisine and healthy choice. I
Okay.
eat canned grapefruit, not canned, but like the little cups of grapefruit. I buy little things of fruit and vegetables. I buy vegetable soup that I eat. It's odd, but it works for me. And one of the things that people do is they count calories or count protein or count their carbs, or they do all of that. I was traumatized by counting when I was younger. Traumatized. The thought of counting every calorie that I put in my mouth just makes me want to cry. So, what I did was I researched everything that I was going to buy. I pretty much buy the similar thing every time.
Mhm.
And what I do is I work it out. I know what I can eat for breakfast. I know what I can eat for lunch. I know what I can eat for dinner. All I have to do is pull it out of the refrigerator or the freezer, throw it into the microwave, and that's it. I don't have to think. And I get everything that I'm supposed to.
Mhm. That
So
is awesome.
I
Ah, I
don't
mean,
eat snacks. So many people eat snacks. I watch people get, it's so weird. I watch people go and get huge hauls from Costco of snacks, and they're counting those calories and they're looking at that. And so many people say you have to eat 1,600, 1,800 calories a day. I'm sorry, looking at my Fitbit, if I did that, I would lose 1 pound a month. I would not lose what I've done. And I'm not tired. That's one of the things that people talk about. I know I've lost muscle. I know that, and I'm going to show you my arms in a minute, but I know I've lost muscle. but I'm not tired. I'm not, my labs are pristine. Everything is just absolutely wonderful. All my electrolytes are perfect. Everything is fantastic. So I'm not worried at all about not eating 1600 calories a day. I just can't even imagine eating that much.
I mean, that's fair. It's you found exactly what works for you, which I think is too much of the problem for so many people is they don't go out and they figure out, well, does this work for me? Does it not work for me? How do I want to approach this and think about it? It's kind of like everybody else is doing this, so that means it's going to work for me as well. But
Right,
you're completely different. There's
right,
entirely different genetics, background, where you grew up. All those things are going to come into play and have a role. So
right.
thinking that something that worked for Susan is going to work for you, well,
Hmm.
that's just not going to be the case of it.
Right,
So
exactly. And that's one of the things why I talk about eating lean cuisine and healthy choice. And then Nestle's, I just saw my first Nestle product in the store today. I can't remember what it's called, but I just saw that one today. And I talk about it because one of the biggest complaints, or one of the, not even complaint, one of the biggest needs for people who are on the medications, whether they've got little kids or whether they've got, to run to soccer. They've got to do all this stuff, that making it as easy as possible instead of as complicated as possible. Just because you said, just because so and so says keto is good and you're going to count your carbs, and that all just makes my head go, wow, because just that idea of doing all that just is too much for me. I've got too many other things to do. I don't want to count calories.
and that's fair. I mean, that is the biggest key is it's you've got to keep tweaking and modifying and find what works for you. And if it's keto, fantastic. If it's
Yes,
vegetarian,
exactly. Exactly, exactly, exactly. So I'm going to show you my arms because people are going to want to see my arms, and the rest of my body too has, I feel like, do you know what ruching is? Ruching is like like drapes, like really expensive drapes, and that is what my body looks like. Now, I am waiting for a consult with a plastic surgeon to get my paniculectomy so that I can get my belly taken off, because as I was big, even though I'm smaller now and my labs are great, I have crushed my spine from being so big for so long. I have 8 bulging discs, 3 herniated discs, and 3 pages this long of all the things that are wrong with my back. So the paniculectomy will help my back tremendously. So it's definitely medical necessity. I won't even get in for the referral until January because they are so full of people doing this. So anyway, the rest of my body is all rouged. I don't have any idea. I call it dripping wax sometimes. It's just so odd. I don't want anyone to see me naked, not even, well, I'll do it in front of doctors, but I give them a warning. Okay, I've got lots of skin. I mean, I can pull it up. It's really wild. So I measured my arms. Oh, first I have to say too, when people say anything about my arms, which is because I wear tank tops a lot when I walk, especially, and if they say things about my arms, you know what I say? I earned it. I earned it. Yes, I've got saggy arms. Yes, they're very long, taggy arms. You can see how thin my arm is. And then this is all the skin that's there, and it's all over. But for crying out loud, I've lost 200 pounds twice, lost 100 pounds before that. All the diet and up and down and up and down, all the, like, I did everything, that HCG, women's pregnant piss, and everything. I did all that stuff. And yeah, so again, I earned it. And I'm not I'm not embarrassed, even though I said I was and didn't want anybody to see. But yeah, there's that mess in the mind.
oh, totally. And there will always be some aspect of it, but I love the reframe that yeah, you did earn it. Like you have put in the work, you have put in the time, and you've come out on the other side. And it's just like the scars from what you had gone through. And while people do want to say that, oh, it's just a choice, like you just need to eat less and move more, Well, clearly that's not the case because you did that many a times over and over, and that, but you didn't just magically lose it. It wasn't until we got the necessary tools in place to help and support you to be successful and to break things down, just like you said, to make it as easy as possible.
Can I tell you what it is when people say that I'm cheating? What my responses are? And you've shown me a couple of them, but I've really elaborated on them. Do you drive a car? Why aren't you walking? Do you use air conditioning and heating? Why not? Why do you do that? Do you fly in a plane? Hey, do you grow your own food and slaughter your own meat? Going to the grocery store is a little bit of cheating too, isn't it? And I just go, and when somebody tells me, and they have a lot, tells me all you have to do is blah blah blah, I say give me 10 minutes in your life and I can pick out what it is that you struggle with, or what you take medication for.
Yeah.
Just because mine is new and mine is on the news does not make it bad. So, and you wanted to know about side effects. The only thing I had was a little tiny bit of constipation,
Okay.
and I take two different fibers, and I take 3 pills of each one once a day, and I go every day ever since I
Okay.
figured it out. And it did take time to figure it out, but
Mhm.
once I did, it was perfectly fine. I've never ever had stomach upset, never had anything like that. So I've been very lucky.
Well, and considering how much of a response you've gotten as well, which is always the big thing, is that I find most people, if you get a bigger response, you're probably going to get more side effects just because your body has the receptors, both good and bad, of the response you're going to get out of it. But the fact that you've responded so well and not
Mhm.
had the side effects that come with it. But again, even with the constipation side of it and even the fiber supplements, I have to talk to people so much about this in the sense that it's not something you just do for a little bit and then shut it off. It's we got to find that thing
Daily.
that works
Oh,
every
yeah.
single day.
And then, of course, we don't drink our water.
Absolutely. That is the key, right?
Yeah,
So
and walk, 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 walk. Yeah.
amazing. Oh, I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad to hear it. So take us through because you were mentioning just before we jumped on the show here about the bumps you're running into with getting or coming needing to come off of Mounjaro or switch over to Ozempic.
Yeah.
But first, let's talk about you had said that Ozempic didn't work for you at all. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Correct. During the shortage, which I know is still going on, but during the peak of the shortage for Monjaro, I was prescribed Ozempic, and I went on it for a month, and it was everything came rushing back. All the noise, everything. I swear it was a placebo for me. Now I know Wegovy and Ozempic work beautifully for a lot of people. It was not something that would work for me. So, with that information and knowledge and memory, my insurance just 2 weeks ago declined my prior authorization and said they will not pay for my Monjaro. So I called the insurance company and they said, well, we want you to go on Ozempic for a year to prove that it doesn't work for you. And
Jeez.
my long, eloquent reply was, so, and I didn't, I'm saying it to you more emphatic, but so you want me to get sick again? You want me to go on 7 medications again? You want me to get fat again? And all to show you how good Monjaro works when I've got a whole year under my belt to show you how good it works? I haven't heard from him yet, but if I get a denial, I will appeal again. I am determined. Oh, and in the meantime, I'm not, they prescribed for me Ozempic. I took one shot and said, no, I'm going to go compounding. So I go compounding now with the Tirzepatide.
Okay. Have you
Yeah.
noticed any difference
Nope.
between the no?
Nope.
Same thing,
And
eh?
what's really odd is, and some people apparently have this, I have a feeling that comes in my mouth and in my eyes that is like menthol. It's almost like you put Vicks Vapor Rub on your chest and how it kind of permeates. And that's the feeling I get with Manjaro. My daughter gets it as well. And I've heard other people say that too, that they get a feeling or a sense or a taste. And So what I did when I got the first compounded, I took a 2.5 poke to do
Hmm.
a test dose to see what happened. Within an hour, I had the menthol. I'm like, yeah, baby, I got the thing. I got the stuff. So yeah, I do fine.
Interesting. And does that taste or sensation, is it around all day? Is it around all the time, or is it
It's
just
around
when you
all
do?
the time, but I don't pay attention to a lot. And then as the 5 days hit, just like everybody else gets hunger, I don't get a whole lot of hunger, but that menthol feeling kind of subsides.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Fascinating. So kind of your own kicking in, if you will, as to knowing that you have the medication, it is present in your body and giving you that
correct.
kind of response. What
Correct.
what dose are you currently on?
15. I've
15?
been on
Okay.
15 for 9 months now. When I
15.
went from, now we wouldn't do it this way now that we know a little bit more. When I went from Trulicity, I was on the 4.5 of Trulicity. And when
Right.
she put me on the Mounjaro, I went to 10. I went jump
Oh,
from 4.5 to 10. So I was on 10 for a couple months, 12.5, and then I've been on 15 for 9 months. And it's
amazing.
great. And people are like, "Oh, you're gonna get used to it. You can't go up." Blah. I haven't gotten used to it yet. So 9 months worth, I think, is pretty good. And then I know you're going to ask too, what am I going to do when I'm all done? Am I going to quit the medication? Fuck no. Excuse me. Hell no. This is my life. This is my life. It's saving my life. It's no different than taking a 81 milligram aspirin so that you don't have a heart attack
Yeah.
every day of your life. And there's going to be pills. And when people say, well, you're on 15 and you're going to run out, I think, well, this is only the first generation. We have 10 more generations coming down the pike, not in 10 years. This is not going to be the first thing. And those of us who are on the trailblazing end of this, we, yes, we are the guinea pigs. I'll grant you that. But we also get to turn back and tell all those behind us it works and it's okay. Keep going
Absolutely.
forward.
And I think that is a very hopeful message for where things are going. And I'm hoping that we see a change in the bigger picture of it all in terms of the processed food availability, the the qualities that make it just so delicious and wanting more and more of it, that we can help to manage it on a bigger picture of
Yeah.
managing the obesity epidemic.
Wouldn't that be
But
wonderful? But food companies are so rich and so they have so much money to do commercials. They have so much money. They and I realize that more kids under 5 recognize the golden arches than Santa Claus. So
absolutely.
it's crazy. Yeah.
And
But that was my detriment. That was definitely my detriment was fast food. When I worked at Disney, I would go through the drive-through at McDonald's and I'd get a fish sandwich and 3 extra, this was when they were supersized, 3 supersized fries. I'd eat them on the way. And then at lunch, I would leave and go get another supersized fry and another fish sandwich. And that
wow,
was for one 5-hour period.
absolutely. That
I wanted
is
to say one more thing, if that's okay.
absolutely.
So, okay. So people call it body dysmorphia. I
Hmm.
Body dysmorphia is an incorrect definition because body dysmorphia means you stand in the mirror and you judge your flaws. That's what you
Hmm.
do with dysmorphia. I call it body mind integration syndrome
Hmm.
because we're trying to integrate our body and our mind together to be able to see what reality is. There has to be another word besides 2 words besides body dysmorphia because dysmorphia is really a misnomer.
Hmm.
And when people realize what it is, or unless we're changing the whole definition of it, but body dysmorphia happens to people with major eating disorders and who stare and look and see their flaws and, oh, what can I change? How can I go and get plastic surgery? That's what body dysmorphia is.
Hmm.
So, mind body integration syndrome is what I have called it.
I like it. Well, we will coin it here first and put it out there, and you have the patent on that one. I can certainly see where you can see that piece coming through, because it is very much that perception, and like you had experienced, especially when you got to that first time down to the 154, you had that mismatch between what you were seeing and what your mind was thinking you needed to do or needed to be at. And I'm sure, while you're using your saying your age now is helping you to be better and in a healthier mindset, but I'm sure you still have moments where that might creep up on you and you'll experience it.
Now, when we started, what was the first thing I said? Oh my God, I look so small. It's so odd. I mean, I have a million pictures of me all over the place, huge as can be. And that is what my mind says. Now I look in the mirror and I can see it, but this is different. This is different mirror. I wanted to show you one more thing. This is my art.
Oh, very cool. Wow.
I didn't draw it. I took a picture of it, but you see what this is. It's the pens. And I
Totally.
collected all the pens and I put them in a thing and I take all kinds of pictures of the pens and I have them all over the place. The pens and now the vials as well. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Very, very neat. I mean,
It just means a lot to me. It saved my life.
definitely. Well, and you saying that you're going to be on this for life, it there's no reason to come off the medication. Like, yes, it is new-ish, but we have a lot of data, we have a lot of experience. We're doing these big, massive trials, and we're not seeing any negative or harmful signals coming out. Yes, for every study that says a negative, I can show you one that has a positive, but it really comes down to the nuances and how the study was completed and that sort of thing. Doesn't mean that people aren't going to have negative experiences, but on the vast majority, it's going to be totally okay. And it looks like it's going to be safe and effective medications long term. And as I always tell people, these medications are allowing you to spend less time thinking about food, focusing on your weight, focusing on counting calories and all of those sorts of things, and allows you to be able to engage with life and the things that are really, really important to you, to engage with family, friends, work, whatever it is, the things that bring you meaning and joy. Those are the things that we want to spend more time on, and that's why we have air conditioning. It's why we have cars. It's why we have grocery stores. It's why we're cheating, is so that we can do more things.
Yeah, I put the scale away when I hit 155, but I had to go to the grocery store that has a scale that I like to take a picture of. So I put the scale away and I'm going to weigh once a month. And now I live. And that's what I do. I'm not going to sit and watch the scale, which I weighed myself once a week on Mondays. And now I'm just going to have a good time. So,
That is amazing to hear, Barb. I really appreciate you sharing your story. It is inspirational, it is incredible, it is heartwarming, and the attitude and perspective that you have with all of this and ongoing, I wish I could give it to more people, because the energy is certainly infectious. Is there anything else that you wanted to add or to?
well, I definitely want people to know that, like with my blog, I talk a lot about being really, really big because that's been the focus of my life. I talk about how to speak to doctors, about going on GLP-1s. I talk about how to tell a physician friendly office or a provider friendly office. And I also did a whole post for providers about how to have a fat friendly office because so few people do. When I was a midwife, I made the whole place for people 500 pounds, at least 500 pounds. So set up things. I had chairs without arms, I had benches, I had all this stuff, the tools, because for goodness sake, I could not, at 400 pounds, I could not do a blood pressure cuff unless it was a thigh cuff. And now I know you can do it down below. You can do it on the forearm and it's much easier. Because trying to do it up here now, they keep trying to do. I'm like, no, 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 no. You're not going to get a blood pressure this way. You're going to get skin. That's all you're going to get. So yeah, so it's important to me for people to feel. I still, like I said, I still feel because it's not that long ago to be that big person. I was a fat activist for a long time, and I I say a fat activist on GLP-1s, is that an oxymoron? Not for me. So yeah, I just work hard to have people get what they need, the care that they need, and to have them know that someone understands what they're going through.
And I think that is one of the most beautiful things that can come out of these experiences. And a number of the guests that I've talked to is that it almost comes full circle that when you have gone through it, you've been in the trenches, you've lived it for many years. But when you start giving back to the community and to others that are maybe just starting on their journey or they need that glimmer of hope at the end of the
Mhm.
tunnel, that is where we really, I think, come full circle, and you
Yeah,
really are able to provide that to people and help them to become their bestest self, whatever that looks like. But to also know you're not alone in this journey. Like, it
yeah,
is so many people that are dealing with it. It is unbelievably hard and challenging, but you're not alone. There are tools available, and it takes a lot of work, but I'm glad people like you are out there advocating and
thank
helping
you.
out as many people as you can.
Yeah, I
So
was alone. I was alone, and they're trying to find anybody on YouTube who started at 400 pounds, especially women. It's almost impossible because I speak for myself, many of us, including myself, are so ashamed at where we started, how we let ourselves go, and so I'm putting myself out there so people know that I do understand. I always, almost every blog post, I put a picture of myself big, and I just want people to know I really do get it. I do get it.
amazing. Well, Barb, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Your website, healthatanycost.com, I have gone and checked it out. It is a fantastic little website, and you have all kinds of fantastic information, even things
Thank
that
you.
I might have to steal for some of my videos going
Yeah,
forward.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd love it. I'd love it. Absolutely. Yeah.
And your podcast. Tell us more about the podcast, when it's coming out, and where people can find
Oh my gosh, I've got 3 podcasts ready, and I've got them up, but they're on Podbean, and I need to filter them out. I'm gonna put them on YouTube as well, but they are only podcasts, they're audio. And I'm hoping, where are we? Hoping by the end of the month to get it all dispersed everywhere to where they need to go, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. So
awesome, amazing. And that's at Health at Any Cost.
that's podcast Power of GLP-1s.
Power of GLP-1s.
Yep.
Amazing. All right. Well, be sure to check it out, everybody. And of course, if you at any point want to share your story on our platform here, please fill out the links and the various components down below. We will reach out to you and get you booked in. And Barb, again, thank you very much for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this time. Thank you, Dr. Dan. And thank you for all you do. You are flipping awesome. And I really, really appreciate you a lot.
Amazing. Thank you. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.